All right, folks, it is the month of December, a brand new month. It is actually Christmas season. We got the Christmas tree. We got the elf on the shelf right there. I might move that around every single video to kind of try and play fun with you guys. But we have our November 2024 power rankings here today. And I got to say, November was a month where we really didn't see any teams do terrible. And that's why this was really difficult to rank outside of, I would say, the top three. That's pretty much it. You could honestly maneuver any of these either way, and even the top three, I think, is easy to move around as well. So let's start off with number 32. We have yet again the Nashville Predators. The Predators this past month went 4, 6, and 5. They so far this season are 7, 12, and 6. They are 30th in the National Hockey League. So again, for Nashville, I mentioned this last episode. I mentioned this in a video this past month. Just the struggles have been too obvious for me to really give them an exception and move them up, even though they are getting points and winning games. They just cannot seem to find that groove necessarily. And even their last couple of games have been overtime losses, which I guess is good because you're getting points, but they have 11 losses this month. When you look at it in terms of overall losses, not just regulation losses, they had 11 losses this month. Even if 5 of those were in extra time, you can't give them a pass, even though they're getting the extra point. At least with a team like the Islanders, who aren't much higher on this list, but they are higher. They are at least winning games in regulation as well, and winning games in those extra time too. So it's different for Nashville. They just really seem to be struggling. They traded Scott Wedgwood a couple days ago. I really think this is the start of the rebuilding process. It still baffles me they're not going to at least try and fire the coach. They're just going to go right into it, which I was like, little weird, but all right. Yeah, I'm not the judge. I can't judge. Number 31, and by the way, my teams are also not that great either, so I can't really judge. The Chicago Blackhawks are number 31. They actually went 5, 6, and 1 in the month of November for a 8, 13, and 2 record so far through the season. I would say that's not that terrible. Again, Chicago has their own issues. Connor Bedard had a rough month. He finally broke his goalless drought. It seems like he's starting to kind of pick it up again. But again, like, you see someone like him, he's on a sophomore slump. It's incredibly obvious. He's struggling. That's not it is a bad thing if you're Chicago. But again, we see a lot of players go through sophomore slumps. My biggest example is Clayton Keller. He went on a sophomore slump last season, in his sophomore year, and I remember that a lot because I was in middle school, and that was my first time ever hearing that term. So, again, players go through it. Bedard's not going to come in right away and maybe go insane, even though he did do that last year. It may take him a little bit to get adjusted to the NHL level still, even though he is in his second season. And again, it happens. Players struggle. It happens. And I think that for Chicago, they need to be looking at more of the long term. Again, if you watch the Nordcast this past week, which by the way, it's up, I've been mentioning a lot of that in the videos, but we talked about Chicago for a pretty good amount of time, saying that there's really no youth up there in the lineup right now with Connor Bedard besides the obvious guys like Vlasic, Kurashev, Reichel, who, besides Vlasic, are all playing pretty limited roles. So it seems like the youth really isn't there with Columbus right now either. And I don't know, it just seems like this team all in all is struggling, even though their record this month wasn't that terrible. Number 30, last in the Eastern Conference. I think they're actually below Chicago, or below Nashville now in the standings, I think. It's the Montreal Canadiens. The Canadiens had a record of 4, 6, and 2 for an 8, 12, and 3 so far this season. I actually thought they were going to beat the Rangers the other night. I really thought it was going to happen. But the Rangers ended up scoring with 22 seconds left and won the game in regulation, broke their 5-game losing streak. So, yeah, I think for Montreal, again, we expected this. We knew it was going to be a developmental year. I really like how Cole Caulfield's playing. I really like how Lane Hutson's playing. I just think that, again, I think I mentioned Hudson last video, but I think that Hudson really needs to just work on his defensive end, and I think he'll be a really good defenseman. He has the offensive capabilities that can do it, or at least get him someone who can play defense on his right side. At least do that. So I think that for Montreal, honestly, we knew this was going to happen. I don't have too much things to say on them. We knew they were going to be at this point. Again, they're aiming for another top 5 pick, which I think is a huge benefit if you look in terms of this roster. They get another really good player, which it seems like there's a lot of good players in this draft. So, hey, why not go for it? Number 29, the Seattle Kraken. I still don't know where I'm going with Seattle. I really thought they were getting something, and then they lose 2 back-to-back to the Sharks. So Seattle this month went 6-8 for an 11-13-1 record. Now, again, if they win those 2 games, they are 12-11. And we're talking a little bit more of a different story. And I'm saying, oh, yeah, there is a good chance that they can stay at this record and start putting some wins together. But it just screams last year to me. They just seem so inconsistent. Again, and like they'll win a couple games, then they'll lose a bunch. Then they'll win a bunch, then they'll lose a bunch. That was the story last year with this team. They couldn't get consistency going. And it seems like that's what this is this year with Seattle again. I do like how Dackard's playing. I do like how some of those top 6 guys are playing as well. But again, just it seems like the struggles are still there and the consistency isn't there either, even now with Bylsma and Campbell coming in as the new head coaching position. It just seems really strange to me with how the Kraken have played. Number 28, and this team I would have loved to put higher. I would have loved to put them higher. Again, they were another team that we talked about on the podcast last week. But the San Jose Sharks at number 28, the Sharks had a record of 6-6-4 in November. 6-6-4 for a 9-13-5 record. I really wanted to put them higher, but I just couldn't find it in myself to do it because I know that this month might be a brutal month for them. I love how this team's playing. I love how Celebrini's looking. Will Smith looks incredible. Fabian Zetterlund looks awesome. Granlund's had a resurgence. Like, this team in the month of November, at the very least, looked really exciting. And even in those games against Seattle, as I mentioned, they looked awesome as well. So, again, like, do I think San Jose is going to, come out of this and, they're going to make the playoffs? No. They're still like 9-13. It's still going to be a big climb for them. But I think with seeing how they're having success with Celebrini and Smith and these players this early, I don't know. Maybe when you get another top 5 pick in here and when you get Sam Dickinson and when Ashcroft's your full-time starter, I don't know. You might be able to get this team into the playoffs sooner rather than later. I'm not saying that, next season. But again, we were talking a much longer term thing here with the Sharks, but with how these guys are playing right now, if this can keep up, I think they can make it before the 26-27 or the 27-28 season. So within the next 2 or 3 years, I think it's really possible. But again, that's me talking out of my butt just because they had one 500 month. We'll see where it goes from here. Number 27, again, should not be a surprise that they're this low. The Ottawa Senators. It's like Groundhog Day, and that's what the next 2 teams are going to be. It's like Groundhog Day. Ottawa, every November, struggles. It happened again this year. They went 5-8-1 in the month of November for a 10-12-1 record to start this season. I will say this. You look at their Novembers the last couple of seasons, they're actually better in this month than they were, or they're better in this year's November than they've been in previous months. Even last year when they were given November off because of how bad they were. That's what I was saying the last year. But I think that they're a little bit better again, but they're still not good enough. You still want to see this team get better. There's a lot of pressure. I'm hearing talks of them wanting to make a shakeup in their core, wanting to possibly trade Josh Norris or some other player on this roster. Again, it's easier said than done. You can just come out and say that and say those rumors and all that stuff, and there could be some fire to it, but a lot of it is probably smoke. A lot of it's probably to just, send a bolt right through that locker room and get those guys focused and back into it. Again, the California road trip did not treat them particularly well. They really could have used more than just 3 of those 6 points. I think that extra point last night against Anaheim, they really could have used that, even though they did get one. Just again, like I feel like this team is still a ways away. I don't think playoffs are a possibility. Unfortunately, I said they would finish close. I don't think I had them in, but again, I really don't know. So we'll see where Ottawa goes in December. If they can have a really good month of December and turn this around, then I think it's a big possibility, because a bad November is usually followed by a pretty bad December, and then they usually heat it up in February. So we'll see where Ottawa goes from here. But again, the other groundhog team that I was talking about was the New York Islanders. I don't know how anyone can watch this team. I watched the Islanders a few times this month, and all of those times was when they would blow a lead late. I don't know how Islanders fans can do it, genuinely. So the Islanders this past month went 6-5-4 for a 9-10-6 record in the month, or so far this season. I just gotta say, like, it's impressive that their record was above 500. The amount of leads this team has blown is actually astronomical. They have blown nine third period leads so far this season. We're in December. It's the second day of December, and they have blown 9 third period leads. They played like 20 games. That's nearly 50% of your games that you have blown a lead. You have blown a third period lead in. That is insane. Imagine if you keep half of those. You're probably top 3 in the division. Even more than it's wild. I don't know what it is. I see Patrick Waugh calling out Lamoriello a ton. I think something's really going to come out of that, possibly in this month, possibly at the end of the season. But it seems like there is some disagreements and discontent between these two staff members in Lamoriello and Patrick Waugh. Again, it just seems really strange how this team just can't seem to hold leads or can't seem to do anything. But we'll see where December takes them, because I still think they're one of those teams, like, again, they're just below 500. They're just outside of the playoffs. I think that for that, like, it honestly, all it takes is a really good month and this team's back in it. Like, they're not one of those teams that is far out of it and needs a huge climb. All they need is like a 5-game win streak and they're back in it. Like, that's all it takes. So, again, there's a lot of teams in the NHL that are like that right now. One of them is probably the Detroit Red Wings, who are number 25 on my list here. The Red Wings this past month went 6-1 for a 10-11-2 record. And I just got to say, like, I made a video on Detroit on Saturday, or last Saturday, not this Saturday. Last Saturday, and I just have to say, like, they are so lucky to be where they are right now. So lucky. And because they are, like, bottom 5 in 5v5, they're bottom 5 in shots, they're bottom 5 in PK. It has been, like, statistically speaking, it has been an awful year for them. It has. But they are unbelievably lucky to be at this point. Why? Because they're winning all of their games 2-1, 3. They're like the Capitals, essentially. Like not this year, like the Capitals last year, where how they got into the playoffs, even though they had like a negative goal differential, was because they were winning their games 3-2, 4-3, 2-1. That's how they would win their games. And then when they would lose, they would get blown out. That's kind of how it worked last year for the Capitals. It doesn't seem entirely like that for Detroit, but again, it still seems like a lot of that is there. I will be seeing them in person this month against my Flyers. So we'll see where that goes. But again, both their goalies are injured, that being Talbot and Lyons. So they called up Sebastian Cossa today. So we're really going to see what happens next with this team. December's a big month. And December last year, was a brutal month for them. They were brutal in December. So December really needs to be a month this year where they really find a groove, or I think Lalonde might be gone, to be honest. I think we're getting there, to be honest with you guys. Number 24, the Utah Hockey Club. Utah currently has a 5-6-2 November record. They are 10-10-4 so far this season. I gotta say, like, that's not a bad record. Not gonna lie to you, that's not a bad record to have. I think that for Utah, They're clearly not ready. I came into this season with the expectation that they could make the playoffs just because they were in Utah. That was about it. I didn't really have anything to back it up besides maybe the new blue line. But that blue line's hurt. Even Maverick Lamoureux, who came in replacement for those injuries, has gone down as well. So the blue line is brutal right now in Utah. But I think that the forwards are playing well. The goalies look all right. Like, Vejmelka has great advanced analytics, great numbers. Jackson Stauber got the first ever shutout for Utah, which is definitely going to be a trivia question, and nobody's going to get it right besides me. But yeah, I think that Utah it's pretty clear they're not ready. It's abundantly clear. But again, we'll see if I'm wrong about that, because again, all it takes for a team like them, because they're 500, is for them to have just a huge push, 5 or 6 game win streak, and they're in that race. So again, that's all it takes for a lot of those teams, and a lot of these teams that are in this middle frame here, that really is all it takes. Number 23, the Pittsburgh Penguins. We're already moving so slow for this. This is gonna be a long video. Pittsburgh has a 6-4-3 record in the month of November. Had a 10-12-4 through the season so far. For Pittsburgh, it's so weird. They had above 500 record this month, but they still want to tear it down. They traded Lars Eller. It seems like they are going to move through with it. They are going to sell. But again, if you get to the point where they are winning a good amount of games, they beat Boston, they beat Calgary this past week, just like in Vancouver too. Like, if they keep winning in December and they are right there, who says Kyle Dubas is going to trade people? They are probably going to go out and spend on somebody. They're going to they're going to be gaslighted and think that, oh, this team can win a Stanley Cup, which again, they have Crosby, so it's, I don't know. It's weird with Pittsburgh because they're winning games. But we said not even 2 weeks ago that, yeah, they were going to tear this down. Doesn't seem like that's happening. But again, we'll see. It's still early. It's November. Again, their record is not that terrible. They're only 2 games below 500. Again, they're like the teams that I listed below. They could go on a 5-game winning streak and be right back in it. So we'll see where that transpires as well. But Pittsburgh is number 23 for me. Number 22 is the St. Louis Blues. The Blues made a lot of moves this month. The Blues actually went 6-6-2 for an 11-12-2 record in the month of November. 2 of those wins are under Jim Montgomery. The other 4 were under Drew Bannister. So again, they were one of the teams that fired their coach. They hired Jim Montgomery from Boston. We'll talk about that a little bit later when we get to Boston. But again, I thought I've made multiple videos on it. I've talked about it like 25 times. I think it's a great hiring. I think it's a great move. I don't know if it helps this team drastically, but again, they are 2-0-1 under him. So they have not lost in regulation yet. Again, that's only 3 games, but still. I think that there's a lot of things that need to go right with this team for that to work out as well. And I think there's a lot of injuries, especially on that blue line, that really have affected this team as well. So again, they're another team where they're right there. We'll see where they go from here. December is going to be a huge month for them if they want to turn it around. But it's good they did this early, because I think they fired Craig Berube around this time last year, if not like a week from now last year. So again, we'll see where that goes as well. Number 21. Surprisingly, they are this low. The Tampa Bay Lightning. The Lightning had a pretty rough month. It wasn't that bad of a month, but it was still a pretty rough month. They went 5-6-2. So far in the season, they are 12-9-2. So again, maybe I'm being a little bit harsh on Tampa. They had a really good first month, and then this month was a little bit slow. A lot of it was because of a few goalie games that weren't particularly great. They had Johansson in there for that one. And yeah, I don't really know what's going on with Tampa. I think they have a few injuries. Kucherov missed the other night against Toronto. I just think that for them, not really sure yet what I think. I think that Hagel and Kucherov are playing very well. But again, we'll see where it goes from here as well with Tampa. I think that this was just a rough month, and I think they can definitely have a bounce back in December for sure. And number 20 is the Buffalo Sabres, who had a 6-6-1 record in the month of November and had a 11-11-2 so far through this season. Buffalo, they were very streaky this month. They would have a week where they would win. They would have a week where they would lose. It was really weird, especially the last 2 weeks of this season where they went 3-0 on that California road trip. And I'm like, oh, hey, maybe this is where maybe this is where they start putting some wins together here and start being really good. And then they lost to Minnesota. They lost in overtime to Vancouver. And they got shut out by the Islanders. And they also got shut out by the Wild, too. So they got shut out twice in this last week of November. And I just still don't know what to make. They are still super inconsistent. Again, they're fifth in the Atlantic because the Atlantic's a crapshoot right now. It still is outside of the top, I would say, top 2 teams, honestly. So, again, with Buffalo, I think Tage Thompson coming back is a huge benefit. But I still don't really know what to think. They're still very inconsistent. I need to see a big boost from them in December if I really want them to be successful. But again, we'll see. We'll see where Buffalo goes from here. I also don't really know what to think about them either. Again, a lot of these teams I still don't really know. I don't have expectations for them just yet because they're still in the middle of it. And again, that's my tier rank Tuesday tomorrow. Is I'm going to look at how teams have done with my expectations. All right, next up, Anaheim Ducks at number 19. The Anaheim Ducks had a record this season of 5-6-1 for a 9-10-3 record now. They are 10-10-3. I don't include December games in here. But I think that Anaheim, for them being where they are, is pretty impressive, especially with the fact that we believed for a little bit that they weren't going to be towards the bottom of the league again. They weren't going to be that good. But actually, they are starting, they're 500 at December. I think that's notable. I don't think they make the playoffs unless if we see a huge push. But I think a lot of that credit has got to go to Lucas Dostal. He has to be given a lot of credit for what has happened with this team. He has backstopped them to multiple wins. Has been awesome this year. And I think that can't go unnoticed. I also think that Trevor Zegras had a pretty good month too, kind of starting to find his groove a little bit more. Again, I just hope he stays healthy. I hope he doesn't get injured. Otherwise, it's going to be another not great of a look of a season. But he is starting to kind of pick up his game a little bit, which is good to see. And even guys like Leo Carlsson and McTavish and Frank Vetrano, they still look really good as well. And we did a stream last week, and we saw Olen Zellweger. That kid's special. That kid is pretty special. So Anaheim, still a team for me. I think that they probably don't make the playoffs. They don't do that, but I think that they can definitely come close. I think they can definitely stay at this 500 record. But again, all it takes is a winning streak or a losing streak, and you find out where you really are. Next up then, the Columbus Blue Jackets at number 18. Columbus, I wanted to put them higher. I wanted to put them higher so badly, but I just could not justify it. They have been really impressive to me, though. The Jackets, so far this season, had a 5-6-2 record in the month of November and a 10-9-3 record so far this season. For Columbus, I gotta be honest, they had a horrible start to the season. The 6 of those losses came in the first 2 weeks. After that, they started winning games, and they even won yesterday against Chicago in December, which is not counted towards this. But again, they are starting to win games, and it's pretty remarkable seeing how they're playing. Guys like Voronkov and Marchenko, guys who really weren't thought of, to be honest, are having pretty good seasons. Sean Monahan is having a great year too. And it makes you happy with what they went through in August. It's great to see how this team is playing, and I can't help but root for them, honestly. I was wearing my Columbus jersey a couple days ago. I just could not help but root for this team. They are just terrific to watch, and I'm being honest, if they make the playoffs, I would be surprised, but I wouldn't be mad at it. I'd be very happy about it, and I'd be rooting for them, quite frankly, to be honest. Number 17, the Boston Bruins. The Bruins, I think, have turned what was a not great month into a solid month through the last week or so. They had a 7-5-3 record this November, and they are 11-11-3 so far this season. They are actually 12-11. So again, the records change. They'll change every day. They don't mean a ton until you get into the latter half of the season. I think that for Boston, it's a great bounce back from what happened with Montgomery the last week or two. I believe they are. They've only lost twice under Joe Sacco in 5 games, so it's good to see that they're starting to win some games. I still think there's some underlying problems with this team that they may need to address. I'm not sold on Lindholm. I'm not sold on Zadorov just yet. I think that overall they have done a good job at bouncing back and actually scoring some goals for once, because that was something they really struggled with. But again, I think that for the Bruins, I need to see a really good December here before I am like, yeah, this team's problems are solved. I still think that it's possible that when we get to the first round, or if they miss the playoffs, because they're not really that far into it, there's still a couple of teams that are ahead of them. I think it's very possible that we see Don Sweeney get let go. Not ruling it out whatsoever. And I think that also Swayman's had a pretty good month too. So you got to give credit where it's due with how this team has been. And I think that they're going to get better, hopefully, but we'll see how December goes for them. All right, that is the bottom 16. We did that in 26 minutes. This is going to be a long video. Let's move into the top 16. I'll start moving a little bit quicker now, since a lot of these teams I don't really need to go in depth with. You guys know these teams are good. You guys know that these teams are, they're on the top 16 for a reason. Number 16, the first, I would say 3 or 4 are going to prop a lot of discussions for me. Number 16 is the Philadelphia Flyers. The Flyers in this month of November went 8-4-2 for a 12-10-3 record in the season so far. They've been impressive, and a lot of it is Michkov. A lot of it is their goalies. And you look at their goalies, it's not Urson. Urson's hurt. It's Kolosov and Fedotov. 2 guys who last month I was saying I'm not sold. Fedotov and Kolosov, even though their underlying numbers aren't that good, and that's because they've had horrible starts to their careers in some games, I think their numbers have gone better. And I think that with the more games they played, and if they play better, that if they play even better and keep playing like that, I think that their numbers are going to get better. And again, Michkov looks great. I would say he's top 3 in Calder. I don't know if I put him number 1, even a Flyers fan. I think there's somebody in Calgary who might be taking that for me. But again, Michkov looks awesome, tied the teenage record for most overtime goals. He's with Sidney Crosby, Ilya Kovalchuk, Rick Nash. It's a pretty good company you have there. And then even guys like Emil Andre on the back end with the injuries has taken a real advantage. I keep him up. If Cam York comes back, I'm keeping Andre up. They have really tough decisions now, especially with that goaltending as well. They're going to have a tough decision to see who do they really want to send down. So again, this Flyers team has taken a really big turn for the better in November, and part of me is happy because, I see my team doing well, that's great. But part of me is mad because we need another draft pick. We need another high draft pick to be around side Michkov. Whatever. We'll see it. There's still plenty of time left in the season for them to crash and burn, so I wouldn't put it past them just yet. But let's see how December goes before I go more into that. Next up, the Calgary Flames at 15. The Flames had a record of 7-5-3 in the month of November for a 12-9-4 record so far this season. Calgary at the end of the month really struggled, but I think they are still good enough for me to put them in the top 16. I really think that Calgary has been impressive. I really, I'm surprised with how they've been playing. And a lot of it, and I don't want to, come on here and throw shade, but a lot of it is Dustin Wolf. A massive part of why this team is as high as they are is Dustin Wolf, and even Daniel Vladar, too. The offense is really not that great on this team. There is going to be a Calgary Flames video coming out either tomorrow, or actually, no, probably Wednesday, because tomorrow's Tier Rank Tuesday. But, yeah, I think that this team, it's a lot of it relies on Wolf. They haven't been scoring. The power play's okay. The penalty kill is not good. Their goals against is the only positive metric that I really saw when I looked at their advanced numbers. So, again, for me, I think that Calgary is, a lot of it's Dustin Wolf, and I think that showed in this last week, losing the last 4 games in a row on the road. We might be seeing them fall back down to reality, but it was good seeing them doing pretty well alongside Columbus, too, who, both those teams had Johnny Gaudreau, and I think that it's good to see both those teams playing well, especially with a lot of what happened there. with that. Number 14 is the Colorado Avalanche. The Avalanche had a record of 8-6 in the month of November for a 13-12 record so far this season. Yeah, it's the goaltending. I think a lot of it is the goaltending. A lot of it is the injuries. But I really I looked at the last couple of games, like they need a goalie. They need a goalie bad. And that's why they got Scott Wedgwood. Wedgwood's going to be hopefully their temporary solution to this problem. I don't think it's a permanent solution. I am not too keen on Scott Wedgwood being your starting goaltender in the playoffs, unless that's Georgiev, but probably not. Again, we'll see where that goes. Again, the injuries are still there. Nichushkin, I think, is back, though. I'm pretty sure he's back. Again, Landeskog's still not in the lineup. There's still a lot of talk there. I think Lekkonen's still out, too. I think Miles Wood's out as well. Ross Colton, too. So just the injuries are still really there with Colorado. I think that it's going to get better when they come back. But again, they need to solve some of these issues now and get some goalies. And I think maybe Wedgwood is the solution to that problem. But we'll see if they move any higher in the month of December in my power rankings then. But overall, right now, not terribly high on the Colorado Avalanche. Number 13, a team that had a very good first half and a very bad second half, is the New York Rangers. The Rangers had a record of 7-7 in the month of November for an overall record of 13-9-1 this season. It has been a rough go of things to start the season for the Rangers, especially this second half of November. There have been talks of a possible shakeup. You look at their stats. Panarin's playing good. Panarin's all right. Zibanejad's slow. Trocheck's slow. Kreider's scoring, but still kind of slow. Fox is also slow. Just overall, the guys who should be performing are not really performing. They're relying on a lot of their offensive depth, specifically Will Cooley, who might be an underrated pick for the Calder Trophy. If I'm being honest with you guys, but for me, I think the Rangers will have a better second half and a better December, because I'm going to be honest, I looked at the playoff race last week, and I looked at how it was last season. The Rangers were out of a playoff spot at Thanksgiving. So I think they will be okay. But again, they need to solve some of these issues, and some of these guys need to get going. Your highest paying players need to get going. It's like I'm watching the playoffs in November. I'm being dead honest with you guys. Number 12, Dallas Stars. I didn't think the Stars had that great of a month. I think it was still a solid month, but it wasn't the best month in the world for me from them. They went 7-6 in November for 14-8. Now, I will say this. They had a very good second half. The first half of that month was kind of on and off. But I just think that for Dallas, they just need to start winning some more games, seeing some more consistency. I don't really know what it was in November. Maybe it was just because they lost the Global Series. They lost a couple of games in a row. I don't really know what that really was, but I think that they are starting to find it again, and I think that's where I'll leave it at. I think they will be able to bounce back and get to where they want to be. Number 11, Los Angeles Kings. The Kings had a record of 8-5-1 for a 14-8-3 record so far this season. I'm still not entirely sold on LA. I like how they have played down the stretch, but I feel like there's some games in there where I'm a little bit, I don't know, like the 7-2 loss to San Jose, losing to a couple other teams they should be beating in there. It just seems like there's still some inconsistency there with LA that needs to be solved. But I like how they're playing. I'm just not entirely sold on on what they are just yet. Number 10, Vancouver Canucks. I'm really impressed with how Vancouver's played with all of the injuries they have and JT Miller not being in the lineup. The Canucks have a record of 8-5 in November for a 12-7-3 record so far. I really like how they played. Jake DeBrusk's on a big goal-scoring streak. Pettersson seems to be picking it up a little bit. Quinn Hughes has the most assists of any defenseman in Canucks history. So I thought that was a pretty cool stat to bring up there too. That was on December. But again, I think that Vancouver is starting to find what I know them as, and I like how they played this month, and I think that should not go unnoticed whatsoever. Number 9, Edmonton Oilers. The Oilers I've not talked about much this month, which is kind of weird to think because I talked about them so much in the last year. The Oilers had a record of 8-4-1 in November for a 13-9-2 record so far this season. I think they're finding what they really are. Again, there were some points this month where I was like, yeah, I don't know, they just can't seem to be consistent. But I mean, I would take a 13-9-2 record over a 2-9 record any day of the week. Just being honest. So again, they have seemed to finally found that groove much earlier than a lot of Oilers fans probably expected, and are very, very happy with the fact that they found their groove. But again, for Oilers to keep continuing, they just need to start picking it up. I think that December needs to be another really good month, gain some ground, because they're still in the wild card. They're still in the wild card even though they had this good month. So things need to get better, I would say, but still a good month in November from the Oilers for sure. Number 8, Vegas Golden Knights. The Golden Knights, 4 straight Pacific Division teams, by the way. The Golden Knights had a record of 8-4-2 in November for a 15-7-3 record so far. I know they got blown out by Utah, but the night before they beat the Winnipeg Jets, so I'm not terribly noticing that. I like how Vegas has been. I think that I still am not sold on the wingers. I like how Eichel and Stone have played for sure. I like how even Samsonov and Adin Hill have been as well. And it seems like Adin Hill, which we covered in our news video, that he is going to be one of those three Four Nations goalies for Team Canada. So good to see. I think Vegas is playing really well, and I think that should not go unnoticed either. Now, another team that I think shouldn't go unnoticed as well is the Toronto Maple Leafs. With how many injuries this team has, it is unbelievable how well they are playing to start this season. The Toronto Maple Leafs in the month of November had a 8-3-1 record for a 14-7-2 record so far this year. Now, I want to put a little bit of an asterisk to that because in the first half of the season, that was where a lot of those games were played. In the last 2 weeks, they played 4 games. In the last 14 days, I think they had 4 or 5 games. Yeah, a lot of breaks in between there. But for a team like Toronto, who is absolutely injury depleted, it's a good thing. It's a good thing you get that time off. You get that time to recover. Austin Matthews came back 2 days ago against Tampa. I think that for him to be back is a great benefit. But guys like Urbankin and guys like Mitten and other guys have come up into this lineup and have played good. So I'm very happy with how Toronto has handled these injuries. And I think that if they can play like this with their full healthy roster, it's a massive benefit. It's a massive benefit. And they could win the division, which is something they don't particularly do very often besides 2021. So even though that was the Canadian division. But anyways, number 6 is the Florida Panthers. The Florida Panthers, not too much to say here. They went 8-6 in November for a 15-9-1 record so far. They don't have the depth they used to. I think that's became abundantly clear. But they are still a very good team. They went on a little bit of a losing streak there. I think a 5-game losing streak, but then they won 4. They went 4-0 this week. Were very assertive. They made a statement against Carolina in both those games, scoring 12 goals in 2 games, even though Carolina had their third string in that, I believe. I think that it's a statement, and I think that it's known that for sure with how Florida is, they are going to be one of those top teams contending for a Stanley Cup again. Okay, the top 5 is where there's going to be some discussion. Number 5, the Winnipeg Jets. The Jets had a record this month of 8-5 for an 8-6 record through the month or through this season so far. It's actually 8-7 now because they lost against Dallas yesterday. Winnipeg, and they are still great. They are still a great team. They are still playing great with Hellebuck. I like how Morrissey is playing. Pionk has racked up a ton of points. I'm going to say this, though. The last 2 weeks have been a little bit concerning with the amount of games they lost. But again, it's better that it happens now than rather in April when it's the playoffs, like the last 2 seasons where it's been like that. So I would rather the little bit of a losing streak, a little bit of kind of trying to figure out where they want to go from here happen now instead of happening, again, in playoffs. So I think that you're happy with it right now as a Jets fan. You just hope they turn it around and start winning even more games, because there's a certain team that is higher on this list than them that has tied them for the league lead in points. Number 4, New Jersey Devils had a pretty good month. The Devils went with a record of 9-5 for a 16-9-2 record so far. The Devils won a lot of their games this month. I like how the play of Jack Hughes and even the goaltending too with Markstrom has looked impressive too. I just think that it was a much better month than October was. Again, they have games in there where it leaves me scratching my head, like being shut out against St. Louis was a little bit of a head scratcher. But I think that still this team is good, and I think that they are going to. I don't think they fall out of it. I don't think it happens this year. They have the goaltending. I think they are going to be a playoff team at the very least this season as of right now. Number 3, a team that has looked very impressive, unless if you look at the last 2 games they've played. The Carolina Hurricanes. The Hurricanes had a record of 9-5-1 in November for a 16-7-1 record so far this year. And even with the goalie injuries of Kochetkov and Anderson, they are still winning games. And I think that, again, against Florida, you got to put a little bit of an asterisk next to that because, again, they didn't have their starting goalies. So I'm not saying that that's the main reason why. You still want to look at those games and be like, yikes. But still, I like how the Hurricanes have played. They're winning games. Jarvis looks good. Marty Necas looked incredible. Incredible. Jackson Blake, one of the rookies, we did a watch with Nordic Stream last week as well with Carolina Rangers. Jackson Blake is good. He is very good, and he's one of those underrated rookies that not many people are talking about this year as getting a major role with Carolina on that power play unit. So I think that deserves a lot of recognition for sure, and I think Carolina is just, again, like they're another team that looks awesome. Another team that looks awesome and even better than awesome is the Washington Capitals, who are at number 2. They are one of 2 teams to win 10 games this month with a 10-4-1 record for a 17-6-1 record so far this season. I love how the Caps have played. I love watching them. Their Chychrun has looked remarkable. Thompson and Lindgren both looked good. Ovechkin before the injury looked remarkable. Dylan Strome, incredible. Connor McMichael, awesome as well. Just, again, like, everybody on this team for Washington is just playing at an amazing level. There are still some games where I'm like, I don't really know. You probably should have won that one against Toronto. You probably should have won that one against New Jersey. But again, they are playing well. They are playing really good in November. December, hopefully, is a better month for them. And again, this is a team that started off really slow last year. Seeing them start off really hot this year has to be a good look, for sure. And finally, number 1, the Minnesota Wild. The Wild, I think, were either 2 or 3 last month, but they have been awesome. They are number 1 for me. They were 10-3-2 in the month of November for a 16-4-4 record so far this year. They don't have 5 regulation losses, and they are the least of any team with regulation losses by a lot. I think the next closest is Winnipeg, where they have 6. So, again, I love how the Wild have played as well. Kaprizov is going to win the Hart. If the season ended today, Kaprizov, that Hart trophy is his. Without a doubt in my mind. Seriously. Gustafsson has also looked remarkable. He looks like possibly their goalie of the future. They got David Jiricek yesterday too. Just, it has been incredible how this team has been able to put this together. And it's not over. The season's not over yet. So really a remarkable stretch from the Minnesota Wild. And that is your November 2024 Power Rankings. 45-minute long video. I think this is what it's going to amount to as. So a very long video here for you guys. Look at Tier Rank Tuesday line. Even longer than that. I don't know the last time I made a 45-minute long video. So again, a lot to talk about. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below on my power rankings. Where did I go right? Where did I go wrong? Let me know your thoughts in the comment section down below. Be sure to like the video too, or if you liked it, like the video. And please subscribe down below if you liked the video and you're new. Again, we're getting closer and closer to 3,000 subscribers. We're about 30 subscribers away, so I'm really hoping to reach it either this week or next week. That would be the great milestone for me. So regardless, let me know your thoughts down below. Thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video.